Basically, I've been with my boyfriend for about 5 months, and I admit wholeheartedly that I rushed into this relationship and should not have. We live together, and at this point, I don't want to continue this, so I've asked him to leave, despite knowing that he doesn't have enough money for his own place or anywhere to go in general. He has no true family. His mother died this year. He just got out of a 6-year physically hurtful relationship, which resulted in this woman making a false police report, taking both of their children, and moving to a different city. He lost his job because the woman took their car, which was in his name. He was forcibly evicted by the landlord of the house, and I ran into him at an opportune time for him to get back on his feet. Honestly, I was also smitten with the guy. I didn't see it as a problem at first. I have a tendency to care for people who later on take advantage of me, disrespect me, or are just mean at some point. This is the first time I've actually put my foot down for myself, and it's being met with anger from him, sadness from me, and massive guilt for putting someone out who has had a hard year and is finally getting back up. He lost everything that he loved and cared for, and now I'm treating him the same as everyone else, it seems. This is not the first time that this man has been displaced from my home. The first time was facilitated solely by my parents and someone else I considered a friend, not me. This time, my parents had their input and influence as well, but this was my choice. I understand why I feel how I do about us, but I don't want to hurt his future. Fast forward to today, we're arguing almost all the time. While I'm not in fear, he is quite aggressive, hostile, spiteful, hurtful, and controlling when he's angry. The words that have been used against me are some of the most egregious things I've ever heard someone say to someone they're supposed to care about. But when things are good, they're great. This instance honestly blindsided him because originally we were doing this for him to get back on his feet so he could move. And at some point we got so comfortable that I guess that idea was put on the back burner. He finally got employed and is now in a stable job. The hours are all topsy-turvy, but he's making money. While he hasn't had a stable paycheck until now, therefore not really contributing to rent at the time, he contributed where he could, but our relationship started off with a level of distrust from him towards me. I thought we were on a positive upswing until he assumed I was cheating because of a random number that texted me, with whom I had a brief joking exchange. It was awful. Because of this, now all I replay in my head are the things he said to me, the things he's called me, and the seething nature of his words. He's got a terrible temper, regularly talks about hurting the people that I know who offend him, but then claims that he cares for me. But when it comes to dealing with me directly, he's usually pretty nice unless I upset him. Saying this out loud, obviously, it's best that I prioritize myself, my solitude, and my safety. But I can't help but feel like I'm kicking somebody while they're down when they're finally in a position to elevate and be successful. Reading this back, I know I'm probably justified, but I still can't shake how bad I feel. If anyone can give advice on how to navigate this situation or how to cope with feeling like you let someone you really care about down, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your time. To add, thank you so much for the outpouring of support. It means so much coming from people who don't even know me. I'm trying so hard to be headstrong about all this. Some clarity. 1. I did hear, see, and have records of what he experienced with his ex. Granted, I only know what I saw, but the physical abuse was documented on security cameras, and he wasn't the initiator, at least from the hours of footage I helped him sort through, because we actually had to go out of town to deal with a similar falsified report. She didn't come to court, and the judge dismissed it. Apparently, she has a pattern. 2. I do think I have been gaslit and manipulated, and I'm honestly sad but also proud of myself. He actually came by my job because prior to all of this happening, I was going to let him borrow my key to gather his things, but my father intervened. 3. I'm going to go back to being single. My new job pays decently, so I'm going to try and get back into therapy. Thank you everyone for everything. If something crazy happens, please know I will update again, but I'm reading the replies and I'm really grateful. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He just got out of a 6-year physically hurtful relationship, which resulted in this woman making a frost police report, taking both of their kids and moving to a different city. He lost his job because the woman took their car, which was in his name. From the way you describe him, it sounds like he was the hurtful one. Also, there's no way his ex could have taken a car in his name. He's lying to you to look like a victim so he can mooch. Stick with your decision, change the locks, and get some cameras. Comment 2. Feeling bad is just going to be a part of it because you aren't an indifferent person. That's okay. Feel your feelings for a bit, but just don't dwell on them. Your ex is responsible for his current situation, and you didn't make the wrong choice. You didn't do this to him maliciously. You aren't responsible for him deciding to make the wrong choices. You aren't responsible for his actions. It bites having to be a part of the consequences, but it's not your fault he didn't choose to be civil or kind. Now for the update. I'm not gonna lie, my life has been a bit crazy since I decided to kick my ex out of my life. Honestly, it's like the moment I made that choice, everything went wild. So it's been just over a month since I broke up with my ex, and I finally moved out of our shared apartment. I found a cute little place that's close to my work. I didn't want to spend hours commuting when I could be using that time to sleep, binge watch, or do literally anything else. The new job is going great, by the way. My boss is chill, and my coworkers are awesome. Plus, I'm getting paid to do what I love. Who knew adulting could actually be this good? I thought I'd miss my ex when I moved out, but honestly, I just feel this weight lifted off my shoulders. He's been blowing up my phone a lot, though. Like a lot. At first, he tried to play it cool, saying he was doing better since we split. But I saw right through that. I'm not falling for his pity party again. He texts me almost daily with these long messages about his life, and while I'm flattered that he cares so much, I'm just not interested. I even ignored a message where he said he was in a tough spot and could really use my support. Sorry, dude. I'm not your therapist. One weekend, I went to my best friend's birthday party at a bar. It was amazing to see everyone again and just let loose. We were dancing like nobody was watching, and I even won a free drink for being the best dancer. At the party, I bumped into a mutual friend who mentioned they saw my ex at a diner earlier in the week. But here's the kicker. He was with another girl. I was not prepared for that. I mean, it's been a month and he's already moved on? I'm not sure how I felt about it. Like I should be happy for him, right? But part of me was just like, really? Days later, I saw on social media that my ex had posted pictures with this new girlfriend. They were at a music festival, looking all happy and in love. Honestly, seeing those photos just solidified my decision to cut ties. I mean, if he can move on that fast, what's left to hang on to? So I went home that weekend for my mom's birthday. It was great seeing my family, but of course, they wanted to talk about the breakup. My brother even mentioned seeing my ex at a bar, looking rough and drinking heavily. I could tell my parents were concerned, but I just brushed it off. He's a big boy. He can handle his own mess. The following weekend, my ex's sister called me, super worried about him. Apparently, he's been trying to reach out to family for help, but no one knows what to do. I felt bad for her, but I really didn't want to get involved. A few days later, another friend told me my ex lost his job. I mean, I kind of felt bad for him, but honestly, it was only a tiny bit. At this cute coffee shop I love, I overheard some people talking about him, saying how withdrawn he's become. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help it. I mean, it was the juiciest gossip. A week later, I got a frantic text from my ex saying he hit rock bottom and needed someone to talk to. I let that message sit in my phone for a few hours before I decided to ignore it. Nope, not today. On Monday, I got a message from my ex's new girlfriend asking if we could talk. I was like, great, this is just what I need. So we met at this small cafe, and she opened up about her concerns for him. She said he's been struggling to cope with the breakup and is just isolating himself. The girl was really sweet and honestly seemed genuinely worried. She also mentioned that he's been drinking a lot, and the thought of her being in a relationship with him made her question if she should even stay with him. After meeting her, I decided to go for a walk to clear my head. My ex's new girlfriend seemed like a great person, and I felt bad for her because she had no idea what she was getting herself into. That evening, My parents called to tell me my ex was in trouble with his finances. They were worried he'd reach out to me for help, and honestly, it freaked me out a bit. I made it clear to my parents that I had no intention of getting involved again. I'm done with that. I'm not his safety net. I'm on my own now, and I'm loving it. So yeah, that's what's been going on with me. I've been focusing on my new job, seeing my friends, and just enjoying life. It's not perfect, but it's mine, and I'm not giving it up for anyone. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for moving into the guest room after my wife's emotional affair and announcing it on social media? I was in a bad place about 5 years ago. I lost both my parents to cancer and had to deal with their estates. I have a sibling as well, but we are not close, and they were making this really hard for everyone. It was a tough time, and I was very depressed. My wife and I were together for 10 years prior to getting married, and we had been married for 4 years at this point. During this time, my wife would come home from work and talk non-stop about a new coworker. It was to the point where I jokingly asked if she had a crush on this guy, which she got offended at and said no. A little background here. My wife had always had a large group of male friends, and I have never had a problem with that. She was even friends with another male coworker who would occasionally come over and hang out with both of us. As long as I got to meet them and get to know them, I had no issues with male friends. Anyway, one time she mentioned she was going out to the store for cigarettes. There are many stores around us, so this is a 10 to 15 minute trip at most. It took her over an hour to get home. I asked if she went to Timbuktu because it took forever. She said she got stuck behind a train at the tracks. That doesn't make sense, but I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was doing some secret gift shopping or something. But this started becoming a regular thing. Twice a week, 3 times a week, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Every time she came home, it was I got stuck behind a train. Now, this is the part I'm not proud of myself for. I started checking her phone for messages between her and this new coworker. There were none there on my first few checks. Then, one day when I checked, there it was, a new message between the two of them asking about meeting up the last time she disappeared. So now I know where she's going on these trips out. The next time she was going to the store, I asked her point blank if she was meeting this coworker, and she said no. I asked her again where she was going and mentioned I knew who she was going to meet with. She doubled down on the lie, so I came clean about seeing the message on her phone. That conversation was a tough one. She acknowledged she had been disappearing to meet this coworker, but insisted it was just to give him some marijuana. She said she would delete his number from her phone and no longer talk to him outside of work. I lost all trust in her, but she said she was willing to work on gaining my trust again. A few weeks later, the coworker quit working there. Honestly, it still really bothered me. About a year later, she told me the coworker was back working there, which opened the conversation again. She said that the coworker was really flaky and would leave her waiting for hours with the marijuana for him, and that's why it took so long. About a year ago, I noticed she stopped wearing her wedding and engagement rings. She said they don't fit anymore. I told her I would get them resized for her, but she shot that down. They both do still fit, for your information. Anyway, this conversation led to more talk about the coworker. She told me that she wasn't getting what she wanted out of our relationship with me being so depressed. It was difficult for her to talk to me, so she was meeting with the coworker to talk about us, me, and other life stuff she couldn't talk to me about. Now, as far as I can tell, this qualifies as emotional cheating. She was hiding this friend from me, and she's never hidden any friends from me before. Over this 5-year period, our relationship feels more like roommates. There is zero romance over this period. It always brings me back to what she said about not getting what she needs from me, so she looked elsewhere. I really hope she's not looking elsewhere for romance. I've brought it up a few times, and it usually ends with her angry with me. She says not everything is about intimacy. I get it. I'm not asking for intimacy, though. Like, how about curling up and cuddling with a good movie, or attempting to even just go to bed at the same time? She says she wants to work on things, but all this time later, it feels the exact same. She mentioned she doesn't want a divorce and is still in love with me, but I'm not feeling this love at all. She said if it was ever going to get to divorce, that it would have to be me making that decision. I'm not sure how to approach this. I'm not sure I can bring this up anymore without starting a huge fight. The other thing bothering me is that every time we talked about it, I would get a little bit more information that I was missing before. What can I do here? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. During 4 out of 5 years of marriage, there has been involvement with a new coworker. She takes her rings off, and there is zero romance. Do you want to sit around forever with the wrong one, or do you want to go and find the right one? You'll never be able to trust her again. My personal opinion is that while it might be a difficult step to take, you should just end the marriage and both move on. If she comes crawling back, you still know you haven't been able to trust her in 4 out of 5 years of your marriage. Be the bigger person and let her live with regret for the rest of her life. Comment 2. Sigh. What exactly are you trying to save? She doesn't want to work on the marriage and is giving all her attention to another man, and that's the best case scenario. More likely, she's been having an affair with this guy under your nose for years. Hard to see how you wouldn't eventually be happier without her. Now for the update. 2 days after we had our little chat, things just went from bad to worse. I noticed the wife was still texting the coworker at the most ridiculous hours. Like, what do you have to discuss at 1 a.m. that can't wait till morning? So we had a quiet dinner at home, and she got a text that made her jump up and go outside to answer it. I mean, come on, you can't just answer a text in front of me? Anyway, I was there, pretending to wash dishes, but I could hear her voice outside sounding all animated and happy. That's when I decided to check her phone again while she was outside, because honestly, the tension was unbearable. I found messages where they were planning to meet up for drinks after work the next day. So, when she came back in, I confronted her about the text and asked if they were still meeting up for drinks. She denied it at first, but then reluctantly admitted they were just friends and she needed someone to talk to. I mean, why couldn't you talk to me? That's what I asked her, and it led to a heated argument about communication. We decided to go to a family dinner at my parents' house that weekend, hoping to ease the tension. But during the dinner, my parents asked about our relationship, and there was this awkward silence. My younger sister casually mentioned how my wife seemed distant lately, and I felt so exposed. Like, thanks for bringing that up in front of everyone, sis. After dinner, we all moved to the living room for dessert, and my brother joked about how marriage was all about compromise. My wife's laugh was way too loud, almost like she was trying to cover something up. Later that night, I overheard her talking to someone on the phone in the bathroom, but I couldn't make out the words. The next morning, I casually asked her about it, and she brushed it off, saying it was nothing. I started to feel so isolated. That's when I took a trip to the local bookstore to clear my head. While browsing, I ran into an old friend who asked about my wife, and I mentioned the ongoing issues we're having. He expressed concern, saying he'd seen her with another man at a bar a few weeks back. I was so shocked that I decided to do some digging and checked social media. I found pictures of my wife with the coworker at a bar, and they were clearly having a good time. I couldn't believe it. The next day, I organized a family gathering for my side of the family to discuss everything openly. During the gathering, I mentioned the issues, but my wife interrupted, claiming I was exaggerating. My sister chimed in, saying she'd noticed the change in my wife's behavior, which made the atmosphere even more tense. After everyone left, my wife and I got into an argument about trust and boundaries. She accused me of being paranoid, and I countered that her actions were suspicious. The argument escalated, and she packed a bag, claiming she needed space. I didn't stop her because honestly, I felt a mix of relief and frustration. The next day, I found a note from her saying she was staying with a friend for a while. A week later, she returned home unexpectedly while I was cooking dinner. We sat down, and she told me she'd been thinking about our relationship. She mentioned needing to figure out what she wanted, which felt like an ultimatum. I realized she had been spending time with the coworker, but she didn't confirm it directly. The tension rose again as we argued about our future and what we wanted as individuals. She finally admitted she wanted to explore her feelings and needed to take time apart. The day after that conversation, I started packing my belongings. I decided I needed a fresh start. I took a weekend trip to a nearby town to clear my head and think about what to do next. When I returned home, I felt this sense of finality. I knew I wouldn't be looking back. I decided it was time to post on social media about my new chapter, signaling to friends and family that I was moving on. Edit: my wife and I had been married for 10 years. The coworker who caused the issues was at her workplace for a short time and then left. She has a different friend group than mine, which is how my sister knew something was off. My wife and I are still in the same house, but I am now living in the guest room. Am I the idiot for refusing to get back together with my bipolar ex-wife, even though she's pregnant with our child? My ex-wife is pregnant with our first child due on Christmas Eve. Essentially, we broke up last Christmas and I moved back in with my parents over 200 miles away. She started a relationship with a coworker, which caused so much drama at her work that in February she reached a mutual agreement to immediately resign in exchange for 6 months' salary. The relationship ended, and she used the settlement money to restart the in vitro fertilization process we had paused years earlier. When I found out she was pregnant, I contacted the in vitro fertilization clinic, which explained that the contracts we had signed at the start of the process were still valid and they hadn't done anything wrong. I disagreed, and thanks to the advice and recommendations of Legal Advice UK, I hired solicitors specializing in clinical negligence and contract law. They managed to negotiate a settlement with the clinic in lieu of legal action, and my ex and I ended up with about £80,000 each after fees. Plus, the clinic updated their processes to require consent to be reconfirmed by both parties before any embryo transfer takes place. For the last 4 months, I have been in regular contact with my ex, discussing settlement negotiations and traveling down south for scans. When I asked why she did it, she just said that she knew this was her last chance to have a baby, and that when she came into some money, she took it as a sign that she should go ahead with the embryo transfer before I remembered to withdraw consent. She has since been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which in her mind has absolved her of any responsibility for her actions. She is desperate for us to get back together and raise our son as a family. I am not interested in being a couple, but I obviously don't want to be over 200 miles away from my son. I've got a new job, so I really didn't want to move back down to Hampshire, but she was willing to move up to Yorkshire as long as we lived together, so we agreed to spend the settlement money on a house in my hometown. I picked up the keys last week, and I have been furnishing and decorating in preparation for us moving in next week. My ex has no friends or family around here, and no job. Us living together is going to be super awkward, but once the baby comes, I am hoping we can get into a co-parenting routine. The new house has 3 bedrooms, so we will each have one, and there will be one for our son. We have agreed not to see other people for at least 3 years, which was her request. What is the best way to navigate this situation? We are both very excited to be parents, and I hope I am making the best of a difficult situation, but it is obviously fraught with potential pitfalls. I do not see us rekindling a romantic relationship, but in an ideal world, we will live together for a few years and then sell the house, by which point she will be settled here and we can live close to each other and co-parent our son. I hope I am not being unbelievably naive and making a huge mistake. My parents are excited to be grandparents, but they are not keen on the idea of us living together. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not a mistake to want to co-parent. Huge mistake to buy a house together and agree to not see other people for 3 years. Your ex has shown herself to be a manipulative liar. Do you really think you're going to have a peaceful 3 years? I know you have already bought a house. My suggestion is to have a plan B so you won't get caught out, for example, plan B of selling the house and co-parenting in separate houses, etc. Any signs of your ex being manipulative again, don't be surprised and act on plan B. Comment 2. You're being unbelievably naive and making a big mistake. Sorry, dude. She is in dire need of therapy and likely medication for her bipolar disorder. It's going to be extremely difficult with a newborn and all the postpartum hormones she's going to be experiencing. Get some support in place now before the baby comes, and be prepared to seek legal action to gain custody of your son if it comes to that. Now for the update. 3 days after moving into the house, I got this text from my ex asking if I could take her to a doctor's appointment. She said she was feeling really unwell and didn't want to drive. I mean, she was like 7 months pregnant at that point, so I wasn't about to let her drive herself anywhere. I agreed to take her, mostly because I wanted to stay involved with the baby stuff and not be the deadbeat dad living 200 miles away. It's what the baby would want. Am I right? Anyway, we get to the appointment, and the doctor starts talking about prenatal vitamins and how her bipolar disorder could complicate things. He was really nice about it, though. After the appointment, my ex wanted to grab lunch at this diner nearby. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Can't say no to a free meal. So during lunch, she's all excited about the baby shower she wants to throw. She says she wants to invite her family and that they're all really excited about the baby. She promised they'd be supportive and helpful with the baby. I wasn't exactly thrilled about meeting her family, but I figured it was time to just get it over with. Over some greasy fries, I reluctantly agreed to meet her parents for dinner the following week. The day before dinner, my mom calls me up just to check in. It's like a weekly thing now, which is nice, but at the same time, it's like, come on, I'm 32, I can take care of myself. Anyway, she asks how things are going with my ex in the house, the usual stuff. But then she gets all mom-like on me and is like, I just want you to be careful, sweetie. Like, what does that even mean? At the Italian restaurant, my ex introduced me to her parents, and they seemed genuinely excited about the baby. Like, really, really excited. It was kind of nice, but also a little weird. I mean, her dad starts asking me all these questions about the living arrangements. I'm trying to keep it light, so I explain our co-parenting plan. That's when her mom pipes up and suggests that we should really consider getting back together. I mean, seriously? We're not even done with dinner, and she's already trying to play matchmaker? After dinner, my ex wanted to stop by this nearby park to talk privately. I thought it was just going to be about the baby, but no. She starts talking about how nice it would be for us to be a family again. You could see how hurt she was, even though she tried to play it off. But then she just switched back to baby shower planning like nothing happened. A few days later, I started getting messages about the baby shower. She had invited her entire extended family, even the people I didn't even know existed. The shower was set for a Saturday afternoon at her parents' house. On the day of the shower, I arrived early to help set up. The atmosphere was festive, and they were all super welcoming, but I still felt like a total outsider. During the gift opening, my ex got this baby carrier that I had picked out. Her family started praising me for being so involved, and it just made me feel uncomfortable. Like, I'm not doing this for your approval, people. Then, out of nowhere, her ex-boyfriend shows up. He says he's a friend, but I could totally feel the tension. Like, dude, you're not fooling anyone. So this ex-boyfriend starts making these comments about how they used to be happy together. I mean, seriously, who does that? So I had to directly ask him to leave, which led to this awkward moment. After the shower, my ex confronted me about my reaction. We ended up having this heated discussion about boundaries and past relationships. A week later, we met up again to discuss the baby's nursery. Don't ask me how we ended up talking about that. It's like we were all over the place with our meetings. Anyway, we decided on a theme and started making plans for decorating. By the end of the week, we figured we should create this shared online document for all the baby preparations. I mean, we were going to have to do something to keep ourselves organized, right? Edit. A few weeks after the shower, my ex asked if we could do a gender reveal. I thought it was a bit late, but she really wanted to. We decided to keep it private and just the two of us. I bought a balloon and filled it with blue powder. We both got a kick out of it, and she seemed genuinely happy. She told me she was having a hard time finding a name for a boy. We then met up to set up the online document for the nursery. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.